particular prayer now to this celebration is known as the Flux Kameni, which you find in theater. And it is embellished with so much graces and blessings by the Blessed Mother. And she encourages us to frequently recite the Flux Kameni, especially on this day. Flux Kameni simply means flower of camel. Flower of camel. So if you have time, when you go back, you check through your theater or even online, you locate the prayer known as the Flux Kameni. This feast links up the Carmelites with the prophet Elijah. It links up the Carmelites with the prophet Elijah, because the tradition of the Carmelite fathers is that they are descendants of the prophet Elias. Elias is the original name, the traditional name for the prophet Elijah. So this particular feast links up the Carmelite fathers to the prophet Elijah. How did this come about? Elijah dwelt on Mount Carmel, lived on Mount Carmel, and he was graced with many gifts with which he worked very outstanding miracles that were not common in the Old Testament. These miracles were not common in the Old Testament. It was only when our Lord came, he began to see miracles similar and even greater than that of the prophet Elijah. He had power to stop rain. He had power to call down rain. He had power to raise the dead. He had power to multiply food, to make food come back for the widow whose food was running out. So he dwelt on Mount Carmel. From there he challenged the prophets of Baal and defeated them. In the precious blood message, Jesus will tell you that in our time, we have so many prophets of Baal, even in our church. Those who cannot pray without shouting. Those who believe that except you pray like Pentecostal, God cannot hear you. Whereas, in the case of Elijah, we found God in the gentle wind. In all the marvels he worked against the prophets of Baal, we can clearly see that in horrible, in great tremors and all that, they couldn't find God. It was only in the gentle wind that he could be found. So he was a great prophet. He is honored specially by the Carmelites, by the Jews, and by the Muslims with a feast on July 20th. That's the day, even the traditional Latin Mass has a feast for him on July 20th. When you go back, check your missal, you will see it there. Of course, the liturgical reformers of Vatican II deleted that feast from the calendar, but it is there in the traditional Latin Mass. On July 20th, Muslims, Catholics, and Jews gather on Mount Carmel to honor the prophet Elijah. So while on Mount Carmel, he prayed that there be no rain, and for 7 years, the sky refused to give its rains, and there was famine everywhere. And after that period, they began to pray again so that rain will come down. After each prayer, he will ask one of his disciples, which were many, to go and check whether there are signs in the cloud that the rain will come. And after checking for like 3 times, on the 3rd time they told him, we saw a cloud shaped in the feet, in the form of the feet of somebody, believed to be the feet of a woman in the sky. Elijah quickly deciphered that this must be the feet of the promised virgin that will give birth to the Messiah. And because of that, among the caves he could find on Mount Carmel, he dedicated one particular one in honor of the promised virgin, and deposited the relics of many patriarchs inside that cave. And this was unknown for a very long time, until a certain hermit traveled to Israel and came around Mount Carmel. He saw the Carmelite fathers who were dwelling there. And this was September 7th evening. He noticed that there was great joy in nature, even in his own heart. That evening, he couldn't explain it. So he asked the Carmelite fathers whether they felt the same joy that he felt, that even the birds and the animals were rejoicing. They told him, yes, this is not the first time. We noticed that this happens on the evening of every September 7th. So it was later that our Lord explained to the hermit that that evening was the birth night of the Blessed Mother, the eve of her birth. And that is why there was so much joy in nature, especially around Mount Carmel. And that he should make it known. This was how the church knew that Our Lady was born on September 8th. That he should make it known to the Carmelites on the mountain that September 8th is the feast, is the birth of Our Lady. And through him, for the first time in AD 250, the church celebrated on Mount Carmel only the birth of her Blessed Mother. Later it got to Pope Urban. The information got to the Pope, and the Pope made it a universal feast. The Carmelites continued after Elijah was taken up, his disciples continued. A number of incidents occurred, one of which was that one of Elijah's disciples traveled to Mount Calvary. And by the time he got there, he saw a skull surrounded by golden hair. He grabbed the skull. Immediately, an angel came, showed himself, and told him, drop the skull. This is the skull of Adam. And from that day on, Mount Calvary came to be known as the place of the skull. And this is just the reason. That skull remained there, covered by earth, by sand, until the coming of Christ. Those who crucified our Lord were acting out a script controlled by heaven without knowing. Because Jesus was crucified directly on top of where that skull lay. He came to repair the sin of the first man. Sometimes you see some passion pictures of Christ crucified. At the foot of that cross, you see a skull there, indicating the place as the place of the skull. It had to do with the discovery through some of the disciples of Elijah. These disciples were, they continued. They were actually said to be descendants of the Essenians. Essenians were the children of those priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant, from the time of Moses. So they continued living there. Many of them lived celibate lives. A few married, but even if they are married, the husband and wife lived in separate caves, coming together only for childbearing, and after that again, lived in separate caves. They forbade themselves from drinking wine, except on special feast days. And so they continued staying there until the coming of Christ. In our Lord's time, after our Lord had ascended into heaven, many of them decided to become priests. And that is how we have the Carmelite fathers. And that is the tradition that says that the Carmelite fathers are descendants of the prophet Elijah. Later, they underwent many problems, many issues, many challenges came their way, and even worldliness. And people began to doubt the claim that these are the prophets, the descendants of the prophet Elijah. Just like people doubt when you tell them that the Catholic Church is the church that Jesus Christ founded. They say, it cannot be. if it is that church, why is this happening, why is that happening? But it is true. So St. Simon's talk, in order to clarify that doubt, went to Our Lady, knelt before her statue, and prayed, asking Our Lady for a sign. Give me a sign to confirm that we are actually descendants of the prophet Elijah. In the Old Testament, people often asked for a sign. You don't blame them too much. Sometimes you can see a vision, you can see things.
You don't understand.
You may not understand, or it may not be fulfilled. It may not come to light in your time. So, to clarify doubts, during certain apparition, even at where we went yesterday, we were discussing about the miracle of the sun. The children of Fatima had to ask Our Lady, what sign did you give to confirm that this apparition is from heaven? The miracle of the sun was a confirmation, was a sign Our Lady now gave them to confirm that this apparition is from heaven. You see, even in the Old Testament, the prophet Isaiah, the Lord said, ask me for a sign. He said, I will not put the Lord to the test. It's okay. If you will not ask, but I will give you a sign. And what is that sign? A virgin shall conceive and bear a son. Normally a virgin cannot conceive. It is impossible. But this is miraculous. So St. Simon's talk asked Our Lady for a sign to confirm that we, the Carmelite fathers, are the descendants of the prophet Elijah. The sign was the scapular. Our Lady now brought the scapular and said, this is the sign. Take this as your habit. Whoever dies wearing this scapular will not suffer eternal fire. She made a lot of promises concerning the scapular, including the Sabbathine privilege. Those who wear it and faithfully, and when they die, if at all they go to purgatory, she will release them on the first Saturday after their death. In Pieta, here Our Lady said, when you are wearing the scapular, you are wearing my garment. It is my clothing. It means I am always thinking of you, and you are always thinking of me. It is so powerful that the brother of St. John of the Cross had an encounter with the devil. And the devil told him, remove that habit you are wearing, the scapular. It has stolen many souls from us. This is how powerful the scapular is. It has worked the miracle of raising somebody from the dead. Somebody encountered a dead person under some circumstance. He removed his own scapular and put on the neck of the dead person. The person instantly came back to life. It also happened in the case of a group that were traveling with a boat on the rough, stormy water. And there was a threat, they had a threat of being capsized. There were many different denominations of Christians in the boat. So everybody was praying according to his own way. But the storm continued. It felt that at any moment from now, the boat was going to capsize. There was one Catholic who was a scapular wearer in that boat. He took out his scapular, kissed it, and threw it to the sea. Instantly, it calmed down. He began to wonder how he would get his scapular back. A gentle breeze blew in some quantity of water into the boat, and the scapular was inside. You can go to the internet and browse miracles of the scapular. There are so many, and it is not something to be taken lightly. Its major simple rule is chastity, purity for the one who wears it. In the book Purgatory Explained, there is a story of a certain harlot who was also wearing the scapular. But just before she died, the scapular started burning her like fire. She had to remove it, and immediately she removed it, she died. Our Lady said, whoever dies wearing the scapular will not suffer eternal fire. It's a bit discouraging to see some of us, Catholics, who are very comfortable not wearing the scapular. It is even more discouraging to see those who have been invested with the scapular, but who on a certain day, maybe CWO wants to do Thanksgiving, and they dress so gorgeously that they feel that the scapular is not a match for this type of expensive blouse. So they remove the scapular and wear a chain, perhaps with goat head as a pendant, and wear it, and they are very relaxed and comfortable with themselves. I have met several people many times. Brother, I've been this, that. Okay, where did I know you? So parish. Okay, you are consecrated, yes. But I'm not seeing your scapular now. It happened to one lady, the kind of dress, you will see whether she's wearing. Where's your scapular? It's at home, brother. It's at home. Yeah. But I'm wearing the medal of mention one medal. So that's not the issue. You were vested with the scapular, and it is supposed to remain on you in and out. If you want to attach a medal, fine. But not that you substitute it for something else. And this person did total consecration in Port Harcourt. I encountered her in Abada houses. And she was just laughing. I said, it's like you don't really know the importance of the scapular. It's one of the agonies I have. Many of the parishes where I go to and I attend Mass, some of the people who organize concert, many of them don't wear the scapular. Almost every pope you know